Charles Garnier. Happy birthday to you, Charles Garnier. Born in 1825. In 4 years, there will be his very important 200th birthday on this day, November 6th. So who was Charles Garnier? Let's read a few things about him. First, let's look at him. He does look romantic, a true French architect of the 19th century, and a man of great talent who won at 31 or 32, being completely unknown, one of the most important commissions and competitions in architecture for the opera in Paris. In the meantime, I mean, now it is called Palais Garnier. So the building that he built received his name. So it's known, the opera in Paris, as Palais or the Palais Garnier. And it's not a little thing. Let's move forward, but something is okay. I like the way he looks. You know, he's I don't know. I mean, yeah, I imagine there are architects today who could look like this or look like this, but you know, somehow from the 19th century, he looks even more romantic. So Jean-Louis Charles Garnier, born, as you see, on November 6, 1825, and died on the 3rd of August, 1898, was a French architect, perhaps best known as the architect of the Palais Garnier, or the opera in Paris, and the opera of Monte Carlo. But he built other buildings, and we are going to see them. First, let's look at some drawings. You know, very elaborate drawings, you know, very detailed and artistically so as well. You know, the representations of his architecture are, you know, romantically classical or classically romantic. It is the building of the opera in Paris is considered neo-Baroque, but usually such definitions are problematic. It was a major victory for him to win this competition, and we are going to see the building in detail. Well, these very detailed drawings were done manually. And as you can see, you know, these drawings are beyond just addressing a function. The ornaments are, you know, complex and meaningful. Without them, the building would not be what it is. Very sensitive drawings, although these look like working drawings, because there are the you know, the dimensions. So inappropriately, I call the next section works. Well, I consider the drawings works as well, but that's how they are named in the on Wikipedia. First, let's look at the built works in France, in Paris, and we begin with Palais Garnier, meaning the opera in Paris, which was built during 14 years. From 1861 to 1875. I will have a longer text here about this important building because it went through an adventurous history. So the Paris Opera, or Palais Garnier, is the most famous auditorium in the world. Well, that's how it is described in Wikipedia. That could be debated, but it is a very important building. With 2,200 seats, this opera house, designed by Charles Garnier, is admired as one of the most prominent architectural masterpieces of its time. So again, let's look at it. It was built at mid-century, a little bit in the second half of the 19th century, 1861 to 1875. The Paris Opera was designed as part of the Great Parisian Reconstruction, which was initiated by Emperor Napoleon III of the Second Empire. The emperor chose Baron Haussmann to supervise the reconstruction, first ordering that he cleared 12,000 square meters of land on which the theater was to be built. This would be the second theater for the world-renowned Parisian opera and ballet companies. An open competition was announced in 1861, which was won by Charles Garnier, who was an unknown 32 years old architect at the time. Although the design of the building seemed to be just what Emperor Napoleon III had in mind, the setbacks and natural disasters were not what the builders needed. Once construction had begun in 1862, it didn't take long before the workers realized a critical error in the location on which the opera would be built. The ground of the lot was extremely swampy, under which flowed a subterranean lake. This delayed the pouring of the concrete foundation, as the water had to be continuously pumped out, lasting 8 months. More setbacks troubled the builders, including the Franco-Prussian War, the subsequent fall of the Second French Empire, and the Paris Commune. A fire raged for 27 hours straight in late October 1873, burning down the current theater known as the La Salle Le Pelletier. This added extra pressure to complete the new theater, and the massive workforce was able to finish the building, the Palais Garnier, by late 1874. Its inauguration followed soon after in January of 1875, opening with a lavish gala. Here I want to say that the spelling of its is incorrect. It's not how it is written, its, and this is a very common mistake in the United States and all over the world. And I could write an essay about this, the meaning of this mistake, because it's correctly here should be ITS without this thing between T and S. And this is a mistake that is very, very, very frequent. Anyway, as the home of the original Phantom of the Opera, it is said that the opera is haunted as a person was killed in 1896 by a falling counterweight of the Grand Chandelier. This incident inspired Gaston Leroux in the original writing of the play, that is Phantom of the Opera, as did the underground lake and cellars. This is the building, and it stands. It's still a glorious presence in the glorious city called Paris. Palais Garnier is of the neo-Baroque style, a term used to describe architecture that encompasses the key characteristics of Baroque style, although built after the proper time period. The monumental style can also be classified as Beaux-Arts, with its use of axial symmetry in plan and its exterior ornamentation. One of the major urban implications of the Paris Opera is its, again, wrongly written, location at the northern end of Avenue de l'Opéra in France. Its role as the terminal axial point suggests that as a public space, it should hold much importance in the community. The audience sits centered around the hanging chandelier, weighing over 6 tons, and the large stage was built to accommodate up to 450 artists. It is opulently decorated with marble friezes, columns, and statuary, many of which are used to portray deities from Greek mythology. The Paris Opera was meant to be a social gathering space for the people, which is reflected in the interweaving corridors, stairwells, landings, and alcoves, which allow movement of large masses of people while also permitting socializing during intermission. And now we look in detail at the building. It is a glorious building, and even the fact that two styles were mentioned, the neo-baroque and the Beaux-Arts, shows that actually testifies about the complexity of the building. But the thing is, this kind of building, in my opinion, deserves to be acknowledged for its sensitivity in detail. It's a massive building, but it's made sensitive through because of the sensitivity of its creator. You see, it is musical. It is. I don't know if I'm inspired enough now to approximate in words what I feel when I look at this building. It is a building which is could have been morose or static or monumental, crushingly monumental, but is actually animated exactly by these the details and ornaments. It's a sensitive building, and at this scale, it's not easy to do something like this. And it's quite appropriate for the function it has. If it was a nuclear reactor, it would have been inappropriate to look like this. But for the Opera of Paris, yes, it is appropriately designed. Because it is in essence about emotions. This is what opera is, this is what art is, and this is what architecture, if it is to deserve its name, should be. You see, it's perfectly symmetrical. It's a large building, and it could have been, less gracefully designed. But it was exactly with grace that Charles Garnier was able to endow this otherwise massive building. The interior is majestic. Is indeed it encourages interaction, social interaction. Look at it; it is splendid. I mean, even if you are a hardcore modernist, you cannot deny, the splendor of this building. And I don't often use the word splendor, but in this case, perhaps it is appropriate. As opposed to, let's say, Versailles or other palaces of the world, this building underlines the public dimension of the work. It was a building, it was meant to be a building that belongs to everybody. Although it's true, the entrance ticket is not inexpensive, but one doesn't go to the opera every day. So I guess, one can make an effort, but you can imagine yourself climbing this, using these stairs and meeting other people, and then in the expectation of the opera which you intend to see. But this space is indeed a catalyst for sensitivity, for emotion, for human interaction, for being open to what art is. Now, of course, Bruno Zevi would say this is not a modern building because it is perfectly symmetrical, and modernism banished symmetry and is against it. But, uh, it might be symmetrical, but it's not rigid, exactly because it is animated by artworks, by bas reliefs, by the richness of the materials. Is a very sensitive interior, powerful at the same time, and it's not rigid. I don't think it's rigid. The plan does seem to have a certain rigidity, but when you look at the built reality, it is a different story altogether. So, even if the plan of the building appears to be rigid, the reality, the built reality of the work is the one that counts. And so, we should think when we make a building about the finality of what we intend to obtain, to realize. And the drawing could be sometimes misleading, because all the richness of the built work cannot be easily shown in just a plan. But there are many, you see, representations, graphic representations of the work where you begin to understand the complexity and the richness. And also the social dimension, which I just mentioned, is present in this very rendering. This was, and will be a public building, and is meant to be a public building. And the spaces outside of the opera space per se are equally important, if not more important. These spaces that accommodate people during the intermission, where people can socialize, exchange ideas, know each other. Well, now is the pandemic, but let's hope this pandemic will go away. And the treatment of the walls also communicates a desire to communicate. It's really about bridging between the wall, meaning the building, and people, but also the bridging between people and people, and also the bridging between music and people. And opera, of course, it's halfway. I mean, it is musical, but it's also theater. So all in all, this is almost like an imago mundi. This opera in Paris is an imago mundi, an image of the world. It's very skillfully done. Now, it would have been nice in this picture to see more people and not just a solitary silhouette there, but we can imagine the other people. Palais Garnier, or the opera in Paris, designed by Charles Garnier. And look at the place, the actual room where the opera, the spectacle takes place, where it's itself splendid. And if I'm not mistaken, these modern painters there at the top are by Chagall, Marc Chagall. A beautiful intervention also by a modern painter in a building which was designed in the 19th century. Now, I wonder, would the minimalists like this building? In my opinion, they would. And maybe they would have second thoughts about minimalism. Yes, minimalism had its successes as well. But when you think about the richness of the best music and the richness of the best architecture, maybe minimalism sometimes could appear a little bit just minimal, if not cold. Try to imagine this building without the ornaments. It would not be the same. It's truly a celebration of life itself. Now, of course, not every building in the world is the opera in Paris. But I still ask, where are the sculptors? Where are the sculptures in today's work? Why is it that we got rid of them? Why? Palladio used them, Garnier used them. And why is it that it doesn't even cross our mind to bring back the sculptors and the painters into the act of building buildings? Why? Again, try to imagine this, just this, what we look at in this picture without the ornaments. Not to speak about the music of Beethoven and Mozart. The music also uses ornaments. Where are the ornaments in today's architecture? Chagall, hello Chagall. You see, there is no contradiction between modern art and the building, let's call it neo-Baroque and Beaux-Arts from the 19th century. No, when the marriage is done sensitively, the marriage lasts. So you could have this kind of art and this kind of art, but also this kind of art, which is modern. Marc Chagall was a modern painter. You see, the building is singing. This is the truth. It is singing. Thus, the architect could easily be named Eupalinos, in reference to what Paul Valéry said, that the architect is the one who makes the stones sing. There are many opera houses built all over the world in the present, some with exceptional buildings, it's true. But somehow this building by Charles Garnier continues to be at the fore. And maybe I would say that actually what differentiates it from the present opera houses built in, with a certain frequency these days, what differentiates this building from the buildings built now is perhaps exactly the particular sensitivity of Charles Garnier, which is expressed through the minute ornamental design, which is not overwhelming, but is distinctly present. And you look at this picture, and you see that the ornament is contributing to the symphonic architectural work quite significantly. if art is a bridge, meaning communication, then, you know, I think these walls with a rich, narration and figuration, with every sculpture that here is present, all these elements are singing together with the walls, with the building. They truly are. I hope I don't become melodramatic, but to me, when I look at this picture, I see a building which wants to communicate. It opens up towards the city, towards life. And how many of our worlds today do this? Look at the interior. Now, maybe some might think it's too heavy, it's too busy, it's too abundant, too rich, too opulent. Well, it is, but opera is opera. You know, it's an opera building. But it is essentially a celebration of art, of music, of the world itself, of life. Now, this is a work, I don't know if I have image, I do. You'll see some other works by Charles Garnier. Panorama Français, 1880, 1882, but it was demolished. But it looks like an interesting building. It's not very clear to me what's going on here. I don't quite know exactly. I read about it, but I forgot, it was a while ago, what this panorama was actually. He also designed, well, anyway, we'll arrive, I don't want to anticipate, but it's an interesting section. Too bad, you know, that, why are buildings that are legitimate and probably valuable destroyed? I don't know. And this was by Charles Garnier that got destroyed. Another panorama. Marigny, remodeled in 1894 as the Théâtre Marigny. Towards the outside, well, it's not so splendid as the opera or the Palais Garnier, but you see, in a way, I'm glad that this picture is here now, because you see that if this building had the same rich ornamentation, the sculptures and so on, that the opera in Paris had, probably would have been, more sensitive and more convincing aesthetically, but it doesn't. And it seems more austere. Maybe the intentions of the architect were in the direction of having some art added to the building, but that didn't happen. Anyway, yes, I think it's important to reflect on the difference between a building which is not brought to the most graceful level it could achieve, and like this one, and the one that the opera in Paris represents. Théâtre Marigny, 1935. Now here you have it with the ornaments. I don't know if these ornaments are as probably not as inspired as those of the opera in Paris, but it is a problem actually. How sometimes it's better not to have ornament if the ornament you find is not intrinsically connected with the function of the building, is not well, in essence, it's not sensitive enough. It's complicated, but one thing is for sure. What is the alternative? This? Maybe. Actually, between this and this, I'm not sure if I would choose this one. Probably not. I feel that here the ornamentation was not so graceful and so inspired as in Palais Garnier. Le Cercle de la Librairie, this is on Boulevard Saint-Germain. It's this building in the corner of the street. I used to live for some months on the Boulevard Saint-Germain. I didn't, I don't remember, I didn't know about this building. I probably passed by it and never knowing that it was designed by Charles Garnier. At the time when I made this presentation, I knew why this red line was pointing towards. Let's see if there is a now. I used to know what this represents, and unfortunately, I forgot. But even if I don't know what this means, I think it's important to say that architecture would do well if at least sometimes try to narrate something. And our architecture today very rarely narrates anything. Uh, there is no symbolism, there is no metaphor, there is no narration. Hello, Mr. Garnier. You seem to be melancholy here, and I don't know why. Anyway, Maison Opéra, Hotel Particulier on Dr. Lancereau from 1867, 1880. I have no pictures now. The tomb of Jacques Offenbach, Cimetière de Montmartre from 1880. So he designed in the 19th century, many architects designed also for Domus Eterna, for the afterlife. This is not happening any longer very often in the 21st century, but in the 19th century, it happened quite often. This was a musician, of course, Offenbach. And, you know, the grave, the tomb, does tell the story visually, plastically of the one who is the inhabitant, so to speak. And here we have, you know, again, the ornament, the narration gives meaning even to this small, you know, architectonic entity. I don't know how to call it. I didn't find quite the most poetical words, and I apologize. But if we look at the images, we see that it is about music, clearly. This is Offenbach. This was Offenbach. This is the composer, Offenbach, quite eccentrically dressed. Uh, anyway, those who love animals might be a little bit offended, but at that time in the 19th century, I guess it was okay. Anyway, Les Ateliers Berthier on the boulevard of the same name, the annex of the opera and its fabrication. So this was a you know, service space, so to speak. And I don't know what's going on now there. Maybe there are art galleries. So it was a place where, you know, where fabricated things for the opera. But still itself rather impressive building. And I'm sure the Parisians found the right usage for it now. So you see, the architect who built and who designed and built the opera in Paris also knew something about structure. I mean, this interior is, we could call it modern, actually. It has an elegant structure, which is obviously functional. And yeah, this room, this building could have been built very recently in Provence. So we saw some buildings in Paris. Now we are going to see some buildings in Provence. Villa Maria Serena in Menton, it is attributed to him. So I guess it's not quite for sure if it's his, but it is attributed to him, to Charles Garnier. I see the oblongs and I continue to advocate the cause. I think the oblongs are a great addition to any building, and they could function very well for various purposes. Unfortunately, if they are made of wood, it would mean, cutting down some trees in order to make them. That's always a problem, especially in the present. I wouldn't cut down any tree. And actually, talking about Paris, well, previously we talked about Paris. I saw 2 or 3 days or 4 days ago on Arch Daily or on Design, I saw that there are plans to transform Champs-Élysées in a bucolic, idyllic, natural landscape, to have the cars totally replaced by I mean, the street, the avenue to be covered by grass and with trees and bushes and flowers. So the revenge of the nature, and I think that is needed. Yes, let's get rid of the cars as much as possible, and let's bring the nature in. And actually, it looked glorious. I regret now I don't have a picture here to see Champs-Élysées. Almost rural. You would recognize l'Arc de Triomphe, but gone is the urban mundane aspects of the avenue, and instead rurality and nature would be welcome back into the city. The casino, he designed several the opera was for art, the casino is for something else, entertainment, and essentially about losing money for the one who plays in the casino, not for the owners of the casino. The casino and thermal baths of Vittel, baths much modified after 1897, the casino destroyed by fire in 1930 and replaced with a different structure. Well, so in 1930, this was the building before it was destroyed. In Vittel, Le Casino, Charles Garnier. Not a bad building, actually. Again, the plan is very diagrammatic and static and symmetrical, but when you look at the building, the reality of the built work is more complex. The plan doesn't show the richness of the final work. What I'm trying to say is, even with a diagrammatic plan, you can create a rich, dynamic, and interesting and engaging building. We look at these plans and we look at this building or this. and there is much more to it than the plan suggests. Again, the presence of the ornaments is highly significant and important. Now, I'm sure in the detailed drawings of the plans would appear also, probably ornaments on the floors, and the ornaments on the ceilings. Here we see in the sections a different sensibility than in the plans that I just showed. And I don't know, this is a rendering, highly impressionistic. Now, Église Saint-Grimoni in La Capelle. So he designed not only casinos and operas, but also a church. A little bit historicist for my taste, but after he did that opera in Paris, perhaps all sins or all misgivings should be forgiven. I don't think he's very convincing with this building. There were, neo-Gothic buildings built in Paris, in fact, much more impressive and convincing. But anyway, he built this church, and let's move to something more interesting. So while the church is as it is, we arrive at a very interesting observatory, which he built in Nice in collaboration with Gustave Eiffel, the astronomical observatory in Nice from 1881 to 1888. It's a modern building, actually. Well, the interior, because the exterior, yes, it has these columns here, which are not even necessary. And yeah, it's a hybrid work outside, but inside is very interesting. In a way, I'm curious what Charles Garnier felt, trying to combine in the same building this almost techno dome and this facade. It's so that they are disjuncted. There is a schism there, I think, but the interior is very pleasant, and is very pleasant for a modern sensibility. And I like to imagine that this is how he designed it and built it, and that it was not changed. Maybe the influence of the engineer Gustave Eiffel is to be acknowledged and felt in this rather technical interior. But for me, it's more impressive than the church we just saw. I wish he collaborated with Eiffel also in the building of the church. Perhaps it would have been a very interesting building if Eiffel was together with him. Until now, from what we saw, still the opera in Paris is his best work by far. Now abroad, because he also built buildings abroad, in Monaco. Here it is. You know, he was a master of opera houses. So this interior brings us back to what we knew at the beginning from Charles Garnier. Very richly decorated. Maybe some I think is a little bit too opulent. That could be a legitimate perception, I would say. It seems to be a little heavy at the top, but what can we say? Another space dedicated to music by this important French architect, Charles Garnier. The thing is, how do you make an opera building, an opera house, and a casino, and how do you differentiate between them? You know, it's is art just entertainment? In my opinion, it is not. I might even think that actually the best art is almost anti-entertainment, although it gives pleasure. But it gives pleasure in a different way, I think, than the frivolousness of pleasure, the thrills of you know, losing your money in a casino. In Italy, in Bordighera, Villa Garnier, I guess he built it for himself. And I'm not very impressed by this building. It reminds me of that church that we just saw. Um, what can we say? Um, I wish, I mean, I don't want to be malicious, but I almost said I wish he didn't build it. It's not so bad, but it's not, it doesn't have the brilliance that that the first building we saw has, Palais Garnier. It's still a little bit historicist, I would say, and not very convincing in my opinion. So this is in Italy, Villa Garnier. Now, of course, it must be probably very pleasant to, you know, live in this house and then climb in this tower and watch the sea and all the rest. But architecturally, I don't think this building is glorious. The 19th century, from the point of view of its eclecticism, sometimes is problematic. But there were very important architects in the 19th century, I know more about those in Great Britain. And even when there was the influence of neo-Gothic architecture, still there were remarkable buildings being built, especially under Queen Victoria. But here, I don't know, for some reason, I don't find the same excitement in front of such a building as I do or I did in front of buildings built in Great Britain around the same time. The town hall of Bordighera, the same town, 1872, 1878. What can we say? You know, a town. If we didn't know was built by, was designed by Charles Garnier, we would probably pass by without being greatly impressed. Another villa, now called Etelinda. Now this is actually his house, or it's very similar. No, it's his house, sorry. Now this is, I guess I wanted to show that there isn't really a great difference between his own villa and this one. Yeah, except that here there is some color, but no. I almost regret I included these works in the presentation. Although here there are some virtues because of the simplicity, but all in all, let's see this church, Church of the Immaculate Conception, or Terra Santa. Is this one? I guess it has a certain interest. Now, after we saw, in fact, I should have shown the opera in Paris at the end, but I showed it at the beginning, and then, you know, all the works afterwards, almost all the works afterwards were less. And yeah, what can you do? He started truly brilliantly, but then I guess after you achieve that level of greatness, you can only go downwards afterwards. And I think this is what happened to Charles Garnier. He continued to build, but less convincingly, in my opinion, than in the case of Palais Garnier or the Opera in Paris. Villa Studio, Garnier Studio near the Villa Garnier, which we saw. And sorry, I guess I couldn't find pictures of it. I took the list of his works from Wikipedia, but not in all cases I'm able to arrive at visual material. So kind of abruptly, and I apologize, I end the presentation here. Happy birthday, Charles Garnier.
Mulțumim foarte mult!